At a prestigious auction, all eyes were on the champion horses, except for those of a boy who saw value where no one else did. A rejected colt, an unexpected bid, and a bet that seemed impossible. But can the unlikely surprise everyone? Welcome to the channel. Before we begin, like and subscribe so we can continue creating stories like this. When the Thompson family arrived at the Barrett Auction Center in the countryside of Illinois, the dust kicked up by the parking vehicles created a golden haze against the evening light. Joseph Thompson, one of the most respected horse breeders in the region, adjusted his straw hat as he stepped out of the Jeep, followed by his grandson, Ethan, a skinny 12-year-old boy with lively, curious brown eyes. "Grandpa, look at all the beautiful horses," exclaimed Ethan, marveling at the number of animals being displayed in the side pens. "Yes, my boy. The Barrett auction is the most important in the country, but remember what we talked about. We're here just to observe. Our financial situation isn't suited for big investments," explained Joseph with a poorly disguised tone of concern. Hope Ranch, the family property for 3 generations, was going through tough times. A prolonged drought had damaged the pastures, and the costs to maintain the business were only increasing. Joseph resisted the idea of selling part of the land, but debts were starting to pile up. "Joseph Thompson, I thought you wouldn't come," boomed a familiar voice. It was Augustus Mendelson, owner of the largest ranch in the region and Joseph's longtime rival. "Came to see what a real champion looks like?" The burly man pointed to a majestic black horse that would be auctioned that night, the favorite of the competition. "I came because my grandson insisted, Augustus. And from what I see, you're as modest as ever," replied Joseph with a restrained smile. Ignoring the tension between the two men, Ethan wandered around the place, carefully observing each animal. It was then that he spotted, in an isolated corner, her skinny colt with a dull brown coat and a downcast gaze. Unlike the other horses proudly displayed, this one seemed to have been placed there just to fill space. "Excuse me, sir. Why is this horse alone?" Ethan asked a passing handler. "That one? He's the reject of the lot. Came from a ranch that went bankrupt. No one will want him, but the auctioneer insisted on including him. He'll probably end up at the slaughterhouse," replied the man indifferently. Ethan approached the pen. The colt, initially frightened, soon calmed down when the boy slowly extended his hand. Their eyes met, and Ethan felt something inexplicable. An instant connection, as if he could see beyond the animal's fragile appearance. "Hey kid, get out of there. This is no place for children," shouted one of the workers, making Ethan run back to his grandfather's side. The auction started promptly, at 8 in the evening. The room was filled with wealthy ranchers, merchants, and onlookers. Ethan sat next to his grandfather, but his mind was fixed on that lonely colt. When it was finally the animal's turn to be presented, the auctioneer barely managed to hide his disinterest. "Lot 47, mixed breed colt, approximately 2 years old. Starting bid, minimum value." An awkward silence filled the room. Some mocking laughs could be heard. Augustus Mendelson commented loudly enough for everyone around to hear, "That one isn't even fit to pull a cart." Ethan felt his face flush with anger. Without thinking twice, he tugged on his grandfather's coat sleeve. "Grandpa, please. I know he's worth it. There's something special about him, I felt it." "Ethan, we can't afford it, and besides, what would we do with an animal like that?" questioned Joseph. "I'll take care of him. I promise. I'll train him every day," pleaded the boy with teary eyes. The auctioneer was about to close the bidding when Joseph, moved by his grandson's passion and an impulse he didn't fully understand, raised his hand. "I'll bid." A wave of laughter swept through the room. Augustus Mendelson was the most scandalous. Joseph has finally lost his mind, spending what little money he has on a nag. Ignoring the comments, Joseph completed the purchase. While signing the papers, he questioned his own sanity. He had spent money he didn't have on a horse no one wanted. When they went back to get the animal, Ethan approached the pen. The colt, as if understanding that his fate had changed, neighed softly. "Let's call him Thunder," decided Ethan, stroking the animal's neglected mane. Joseph watched the scene with a mix of concern and tenderness. "Are you sure about this, my boy? It's going to be a lot of work." "I am, Grandpa. I know everyone's laughing now, but one day Thunder will show what he's really worth. The next morning, when they arrived at Hope Ranch with the new resident, the ranch hands didn't hide their disappointment. "Mr. Thompson, with all due respect, that horse isn't good for anything," commented Joe, the oldest foreman on the ranch. "Let the boy try, Joe. Sometimes the best bets are the ones no one else would make," replied Joseph, looking at his grandson, who was already running to the stable with a brush in hand. At school, Ethan became the target of jokes. "Here comes the boy with the nag," shouted his classmates, children of other ranchers in the region. But Ethan didn't care. Every morning before classes and every afternoon after school, he spent hours with Thunder. With patience uncommon for his age, Ethan began to earn the animal's trust. First just by brushing his dull coat, then talking to him while cleaning his stall. Gradually, Thunder began to respond to the boy's call with excited neighs. Grandma Martha, Ethan's grandmother, watched her grandson's dedication with pride and concern. "Joseph, do you think this was a good idea? The boy is obsessed with that horse." "I don't know, Martha, but I've never seen Ethan so determined. Maybe it's good for him to have this responsibility." 3 months passed. The transformation in Thunder began to become evident. His coat, once dull, now shone in the sun. He had gained weight and muscle. His eyes, once melancholic, now showed vitality. It was then that Ethan asked his grandfather to help him start mounted training. "Grandpa, I think Thunder is ready to be ridden." "Are you sure, Ethan? It's dangerous. He's never been properly broken." "I trust him, Grandpa, and he trusts me." Against his better judgment, Joseph agreed to supervise. To his surprise, when Ethan approached with the saddle, Thunder remained calm. And when the boy mounted him for the first time, the horse just waited patiently for the command. "Impressive," murmured Joseph, watching his grandson guide the animal around the makeshift arena. "Truly impressive." In the following months, Ethan developed his own training program for Thunder, based on books he borrowed from the local library and videos he watched on the school's internet. The bond between the two strengthened every day. Where Ethan went, Thunder followed like a faithful dog. On a sunny afternoon, while training in the open field, a luxury car parked at the ranch's entrance. It was Augustus Mendelssohn, accompanied by his son Richard and some fellow ranchers. "Came to see how your investment is doing," he taunted, laughing loudly. Ethan, mounted on Thunder, felt his blood boil. Without thinking twice, he guided the horse through a series of movements he had practiced in secret. Thunder responded with impressive precision, executing turns, abrupt stops, and even small jumps over fallen logs. The mocking smile on Augustus's face gradually disappeared. "That's impossible," he murmured to himself, seeing the horse he considered useless demonstrate surprising skills. "Impressed, Augustus?" asked Joseph, not hiding his pride. "Beginner's luck," replied the man, visibly annoyed. "Speaking of luck, have you heard about the Great Equestrian Challenge happening at the end of the year? The winner gets a substantial prize." "We're not interested in competitions, Augustus." "Of course you're not. It would be a huge embarrassment for you," he taunted again before getting into his car and driving off. Augustus Mendelssohn's words echoed in Ethan's mind for days. The Great Equestrian Challenge was the most prestigious competition in the region, bringing together the best riders and horses. Participating seemed like a distant dream, but something inside the boy believed Thunder had the potential to surprise everyone. "Grandpa, what if we entered the challenge?" Ethan asked one night during dinner. Joseph almost choked on his coffee. "Are you crazy, boy? That's for professionals. Horses trained for years by experts." "But Thunder is special. You've seen his progress," insisted the boy. Grandma Martha intervened. "Ethan, your grandfather is right. Even if Thunder is improving, he's still a mixed-breed horse with no formal training." The matter seemed settled, but Ethan didn't give up. With each passing day, he intensified Thunder's training. He woke up before sunrise to exercise the animal, studied riding techniques, and watched videos of previous competitions. Thunder's transformation continued to impress everyone on the ranch. What was once a clumsy colt now showed himself to be an agile and strong animal. His coat shone like polished copper in the sun, and his eyes conveyed an uncommon intelligence. Joe, the foreman who had initially doubted the animal's potential, was one of the first to change his mind. "Mr. Thompson, I've never seen anything like it. It's like that horse understands everything the boy thinks." Rumors about the surprising horse at Hope Ranch began to spread through the region. Small groups of curious onlookers occasionally appeared to watch Ethan train with Thunder. Among them one day came an unexpected figure, Clara Roberts, a renowned riding instructor who had trained national champions. "I heard about a boy and an extraordinary horse," she said, approaching Joseph as she watched Ethan and Thunder in the field. "I see the rumors didn't exaggerate." "Clara Roberts, the trainer from New Horizon Riding School?" asked Joseph, surprised. "The very same," she replied with a smile. "And I'm impressed. That horse has incredible potential, and the boy has a natural gift." Clara observed the training for over an hour, taking notes and photos. At the end, she called Ethan for a conversation. "Have you considered entering the Great Equestrian Challenge?" The boy's eyes lit up. "More than anything, but my grandfather thinks we're not ready." "With proper training, you could surprise." "A lot of people," Clara said. "I could help if your grandfather allows it." That night during dinner, Clara presented her proposal to the Thompson family. She offered free training to Ethan and Thunder 3 times a week, in exchange for documenting their progress for a study on alternative equestrian training methods. "Why would you do this for us?" questioned Joseph, suspicious. "Because in 20 years of career, I've never seen such a strong connection between rider and horse. What your grandson achieved with an animal everyone rejected is extraordinary. This needs to be studied and shown to the world." After long discussions and Clara's promise to take full responsibility for Ethan's safety, Joseph finally agreed. The training sessions would begin the following week. The news of the partnership between Clara Roberts and the boy with the nag, as Ethan was still known, spread quickly. Augustus Mendelssohn soon appeared at Hope Ranch. "So the rumors are true." "Clara Roberts is training your grandson?" he asked with poorly disguised disdain. "I am," replied Clara, who had just arrived for a session. "Any problem, Augustus? Just find it curious that a trainer of your reputation is wasting time with that," he said, pointing at Thunder. "Maybe you should watch before judging," Clara retorted. "Ethan, how about we show Mr. Mendelssohn what we've been practicing?" What followed left Augustus visibly disturbed. Ethan guided Thunder through a series of complex exercises that only very well-trained horses could perform. The synchronization between the two was perfect, as if they were a single entity. "Impressive," murmured Augustus, more to himself. "But still, an official competition is another story." Before leaving, Augustus approached Joseph. "Since you're so confident, how about a little wager? If your grandson and that miracle horse win the Great Equestrian Challenge, I'll double the prize money with my own funds." Joseph hesitated. "And if we lose?" "You sell me those 20 acres that border my land. For a fair price, of course," proposed Augustus with a calculating smile. "No, Augustus, I won't bet family land." "That's a shame. It would be a chance to solve your financial problems at once, but I understand confidence has its limits, doesn't it?" he taunted, before getting into his car and driving off. Augustus's words haunted Joseph for the rest of the day. Hope Ranch was truly in financial trouble. The challenge prize would be enough to pay off part of the debts, but doubled, as Augustus proposed, would solve almost all their problems. That night, after Ethan fell asleep, Joseph discussed the proposal with Grandma Martha. "It's too risky, Joseph," she opined. "But if Ethan wins, we could save the ranch." "And if he loses?" "Those 20 acres have the spring that supplies our entire property." Joseph spent the night wide awake. In the morning, without consulting anyone, he sought out Augustus at his ranch and accepted the bet. A simple contract was drafted and signed by both parties. The training intensified in the following weeks. Clara was strict but fair. She worked exhaustively with Ethan and Thunder, correcting posture, refining techniques, teaching competition strategies. "You have a natural gift, Ethan," Clara commented after a particularly successful session. And Thunder, he's simply extraordinary. It's like he understands every word, every thought of yours. The bond between boy and horse strengthened every day. During breaks, Ethan would sit beside Thunder in the pasture, telling stories, sharing dreams, and the horse, with his now expressive and lively eyes, seemed to understand every word. The date of the Great Equestrian Challenge approached rapidly. Less than a week before the competition, Ethan accidentally discovered his grandfather's bet when he overheard a conversation between Joseph and Joe. 20 acres? Grandpa, that's the most important part of the ranch, Ethan confronted, horrified. I trust you and Thunder, my boy, replied Joseph, trying to disguise his concern. Besides, we need the money to save the ranch. But what if we lose? Why didn't you tell me? I didn't want to pressure you. You and Thunder have already come so far. Without this weight on your shoulders? Ethan felt his world crumble. Suddenly, he wasn't just competing for a dream, but for the future of his entire family. That night, the boy couldn't sleep. He went to the stable and spent hours beside Thunder, pouring out his anxieties. What if I'm not good enough? What if you get hurt? We'll lose everything because of me. Thunder, as if understanding the boy's distress, gently nudged Ethan's shoulder with his muzzle, as if saying, We're in this together. On the morning of the competition, heavy rain fell over the region. The setting couldn't be worse. The track was soaked, turning into a treacherous mud pit. Several competitors considered withdrawing due to the dangerous conditions. Maybe it's better to postpone, suggested Clara, worried. We can't, replied Ethan, determined. We're ready. Thunder and I can do this. The Great Equestrian Challenge was divided into 3 events: precision, endurance, and speed. The first was an obstacle course testing the coordination between horse and rider. The second was a trek through rugged terrain, requiring endurance. The third, a traditional oval track race. As Ethan prepared Thunder for the first event, he noticed something strange. The horse was slightly limping on his right front leg. Something's wrong with the horseshoe, observed Clara, examining the horse's hoof. It's been deliberately loosened. Someone sabotaged you. Ethan's gaze immediately turned to where Augustus Mendelssohn and his son Richard were watching the preparations. The man smiled arrogantly, as if daring the boy to make an accusation. We don't have time to replace the horseshoe, warned Clara. The event starts in 10 minutes. Ethan looked Thunder in the eyes. What do you think, buddy? Can we try anyway? In response, Thunder neighed and stomped his hoof, determined. Let's do it, decided Ethan, mounting the horse. We just need to be more careful. The first event was a demonstration of courage and adaptation. Ethan constantly adjusted his strategy, avoiding putting pressure on Thunder's injured leg. To everyone's surprise, they completed the course without any penalties, securing 3rd place. In the endurance event, they faced the mud and relentless rain. Thunder showed impressive determination, overcoming terrains that made other experienced horses give up. They finished in 2nd place behind only Augustus's horse, ridden by a professional jockey. Before the final event, the speed race, Ethan noticed the horseshoe had come off completely. Thunder now risked serious injury if he participated in the last stage. The rain continued to pour mercilessly over the Barrett Equestrian Center. The audience, sheltered under tents and umbrellas, eagerly awaited the final event. Ethan looked desolately at Thunder's bare hoof as Clara and Joseph discussed the situation. He can't race like this, Clara stated categorically. Without a horseshoe on a muddy track, the risk of injury is enormous. Then we need to withdraw, concluded Joseph, with a mix of relief and disappointment. Deep down, guilt over the thoughtless deal with Augustus consumed him. Ethan, however, remained silent, his eyes fixed on Thunder. The horse, despite the evident discomfort, stood firm, as if understanding the importance of the moment. There's an alternative, interrupted Joe, who had just arrived hurriedly. I found a blacksmith in town who can try to put on an emergency. Horseshoe, it's not ideal, but it might work to finish the competition. We don't have time, warned Clara. The event starts in 30 minutes. Then let's go now, exclaimed Ethan, already leading Thunder out of the preparation area. The blacksmith, an elderly man named Mr. Anthony, worked quickly in his makeshift workshop at the back of the equestrian center. His calloused hands moved with impressive precision, preparing an emergency horseshoe for Thunder. "Never seen a case like this," commented the old man, examining the horse's hoof. "Someone clearly sabotaged you. This horseshoe was deliberately loosened to fall during the competition." "Can you fix it in time?" asked Ethan, anxious. "I'll do my best, boy. But I have to warn you, it won't be perfect. Your horse will need a lot of care during the race." As Mr. Anthony worked, Augustus Mendelssohn appeared at the workshop's entrance, feigning concern. "Equipment problems? What a pity. Maybe it's a sign to withdraw." "We're not withdrawing," Ethan replied firmly. "Thunder and I are going all the way." "Admirable, boy. But it would be wiser to accept defeat. Your grandfather would understand. He's lost before." Augustus taunted with a smirk before walking away. Joseph, who had been silently observing the scene, approached his grandson. "Ethan, listen. We don't have to continue. I can talk to Augustus, try to nullify the bet." "No, Grandpa. We're competing. Not because of the bet, but because Thunder deserves to show what he's worth. We've come too far to quit now." The determination in Ethan's eyes moved his grandfather, who nodded silently. Minutes later, Mr. Anthony finished fitting the emergency horseshoe. "Done. It's not perfect, but it should hold. Just be careful on the turns and avoid putting too much pressure on the right side." With only 5 minutes to spare, Ethan and Thunder returned to the competition area. The other competitors were already in position, and the disdainful glances didn't go unnoticed. Augustus's black horse Tornado, ridden by the professional jockey Mark Stevens, was clearly the favorite. The final event was a 3-lap race on an oval track. Ethan knew he had to be strategic. The makeshift horseshoe might not hold if he pushed Thunder too hard from the start. "Let's take it easy for the first 2 laps, Ethan whispered into Thunder's ear. "On the last one, we'll give it everything we've got." The starting gun fired and the horses shot down the muddy track. As planned, Ethan kept Thunder at a moderate pace, allowing several competitors to take the lead. By the end of the first lap, they were in 7th place with Tornado comfortably ahead. From the stands, Clara watched intently. "He's being smart," she commented to Joseph, "preserving the horse for the final stretch." On the 2nd lap, Ethan began guiding Thunder toward the less muddy parts of the track, avoiding overloading the hoof with the makeshift shoe. Gradually, they started overtaking other horses that were already showing signs of fatigue. By the start of the 3rd and final lap, they were in 4th place. Then, as if understanding the plan perfectly, Thunder began to accelerate on his own. The synchronization between rider and horse was remarkable. Ethan simply followed the horse's instincts, trusting his judgment. One by one, they overtook the competitors ahead. Soon, only Tornado remained, still holding a considerable lead. The makeshift horseshoe began to loosen again, but Thunder didn't slow down. On the final turn, the unexpected happened. Realizing he was about to be overtaken, Mark Stevens, Tornado's jockey, attempted a dirty move, steering his horse to block Thunder's path. Reacting instinctively, Ethan gently pulled the reins, guiding Thunder to the outside of the track, the muddiest and most dangerous part for the unprotected hoof. A collective gasp swept through the crowd. Everyone expected the young rider and his horse to fall. But Thunder, displaying almost supernatural intelligence, redistributed his weight, easing the pressure on the vulnerable hoof. With an extraordinary burst of speed, he surged past Tornado on the outside. The final 100. Meters were a display of sheer determination. Thunder, now visibly limping, maintained his frenetic pace until he crossed the finish line, a nose ahead of Tornado. For a moment, the crowd was silent, then erupted into thunderous applause. People rose to their feet, marveling at what they had just witnessed. Ethan immediately dismounted, wrapping his arms around Thunder's neck, tears mixing with the rain still pouring down. Joseph ran to his grandson, pulling him into a tight embrace. "You did it, my boy. You both did it." Clara approached to examine. "Thunder, we need to treat that hoof immediately. The horseshoe came off completely on the final turn. It's a miracle he finished the race." Augustus Mendelssohn stormed across the field toward them, his face twisted in a mix of rage and disbelief. "That was pure luck, a statistical fluke," he shouted. "I demand a rematch under proper conditions." The head judge of the competition, who had just officially announced Ethan and Thunder as the winners of the Great Equestrian Challenge, intervened. "The rules are clear, Mr. Mendelsohn. The competition was fair, and the results are final." Fair? That boy shouldn't even be competing. "And that animal shouldn't exist," Augustus yelled, losing all composure. "A deal is a deal, Augustus," Joseph reminded him calmly. "You proposed the bet, and I accepted. Now you need to honor your word." Defeated, Augustus stormed off furiously, but not without casting one last, scornful look at Ethan and Thunder. In the days that followed, news of the incredible victory of the boy with the nag spread throughout the region. Local newspapers published stories about the unlikely duo that had defied all expectations. Thunder, who months earlier had been destined for the slaughterhouse, was now celebrated as one of the most extraordinary horses in the area. The challenge prize, combined with the money Augustus was forced to pay due to the bet, allowed the Thompson family to pay off all their debts at Hope Ranch. But the greatest reward came a week after the competition, when a prominent horse breeder, Charles Montgomery, arrived at the ranch with $1 million offer. "I want to buy Thunder." "Name your price," the man said to Joseph. Ethan, overhearing the conversation, felt his heart tighten. The amount offered was enough to secure the family's future for years, renovate the ranch, and expand their business. "It's not my decision," Joseph replied, looking at his grandson. "Thunder belongs to Ethan." All eyes turned to the boy. Grandma Martha, concerned about the family's future, tried to influence the decision. "Think carefully, my boy. With this money, we could secure your future, your education." Joe added, "Besides, Mr. Montgomery has the resources to care for Thunder better than we ever could. He'd have the best treatments, the best trainers." Clara, who was present during the meeting, remained silent, simply observing Ethan with interest. Ethan asked for a moment and walked to the stable where Thunder was resting. The hoof injured during the race was almost fully healed, thanks to the intensive care of the past few days. When Thunder saw Ethan, he neighed softly and approached the gate. The boy ran his hand along the horse's strong neck, recalling all, the moments they had shared, the difficult early days, the hours of training, the disbelief of others, the improbable victory. Ethan thought about the offer. The money would solve the family's financial problems, ensure a comfortable life for his grandparents, and allow him to attend the best schools. It was the sensible, rational decision. But then he looked into Thunder's eyes, those eyes that had once been sad and empty, now shining with intelligence and trust. And in that moment, he knew some things were priceless. Returning to the room where everyone waited, Ethan faced the businessman. "Thank you for your offer, Mr. Montgomery, but Thunder isn't for sale, not for any amount of money." Charles smiled, as if he had expected that answer. "I understand completely. In fact, I came prepared with an alternative proposal. I'm assembling a national equestrian team. I'd like you and Thunder to be part of it. You'd stay together, train under my guidance, and compete in championships across the country. What do you say?" Ethan's eyes lit up at the possibility. He looked at his grandfather, seeking approval. "The decision is yours, my boy," said Joseph, emotional. "You and Thunder have proven you know how to choose the right path." In the years that followed, Ethan and Thunder became one of the most successful duos in American equestrian sports. Their story, the story of the horse no one wanted, and the boy who believed in him when no one else did, inspired generations of young riders across the country. Hope Ranch flourished under Joseph's management, and he never again considered selling the land. Clara Roberts published studies on the revolutionary training methods she observed in the duo, establishing new paradigms in national equestrianism. As for Augustus Mendelsohn, he never made another reckless bet. Rumor had it he became a humbler man, especially after his son Richard, inspired by Ethan and Thunder's story, began rescuing and rehabilitating abandoned horses on his own ranch. On a sunny afternoon, years after that improbable victory, Ethan, now a young man, rode Thunder across the fields of Hope Ranch. They stopped atop a hill, gazing at the horizon. The horse, still strong and vigorous despite his age, neighed softly, as if communicating something important. "I know, buddy," Ethan replied, stroking his mane. "I'll never forget the day you chose me either." Because that was the truth Ethan had discovered over time. It wasn't he who had saved Thunder at that auction years ago. It was Thunder who had saved him, teaching him the most valuable lessons about trust, perseverance, and the courage to believe when no one else does. And in that small town in the heart of Illinois, the story of the boy and his extraordinary horse continues to be told, reminding everyone that the greatest champions aren't always the ones who seem strongest at first glance, but those who carry in their hearts the most powerful force of all, unwavering faith in themselves and in those they love.